Let's talk about something you think you know, ropeways. You probably picture a ski lift or a scenic ride up a mountain. But what if that same technology could be something much, much bigger? Well, in India, it's becoming a key part of the country's development, and we're about to show you how.
Right? It's a pretty wild thought. Take a second and just forget tourism. Instead, imagine that familiar cable car system being used to solve massive problems, like gridlock in our cities, or connecting villages that are otherwise cut off. That's not a what-if scenario. It's happening right now. So here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we'll cover why these highways in the sky are suddenly so important. Then, we'll dive into the Make in India strategy that's making it all possible. We'll spotlight a company on the ground doing the heavy lifting, and finally, we'll zoom out to see what this all means for the future.
All right, let's jump right in. Highways in the sky. And look, that's not just some catchy phrase. It represents a fundamental change in how we think about transportation. But this whole new vision kicked off with one major roadblock. This lifeline was being imported.
Yeah, you heard that right. Ropeways are no longer just for a fun day out. They are being rolled out as a serious, strategic way to get people and goods from point A to point B. For people in remote mountain areas, it's a lifeline. For people in crowded cities, it's a way to literally rise above the gridlock.
And this isn't just a handful of projects. There's a huge government program called Parvatmala that's driving this entire shift. The mission is straightforward. Make ropeways the default, eco-friendly transport solution for India's most challenging landscapes.
But there was a huge problem holding things back. For years, all the critical technology had to be imported, mostly from Europe. This created this dependency that meant higher costs and made it really hard to build these affordably for the public. The only way forward was to build it at home, with a Make in India approach that can make it affordable, self-reliant, and truly accessible to everyone.
So, that brings us to the blueprint itself. If relying on imports was the problem, how exactly did the government plan to build this national capability from scratch?
The strategy is actually a really clear four-step plan. First, you launch the big program, Parvatmala. Next, you bring in private companies using a partnership model. Then, and this is key, you mandate that at least half of all the parts have to be sourced locally. And finally, you create a special agency to cut through the red tape and make it all happen smoothly.
Let's dig into that partnership model for a second. It's called a hybrid annuity model. Now, that might sound complicated, but the idea is simple. The government puts up 60% of the construction cost. This drastically lowers the risk for private investors and makes these massive projects way more appealing for them to jump into.
And the goal here is nothing short of building an entire domestic industry. We're not just talking about assembling parts, we're talking about manufacturing the whole shebang, right here in India. The giant towers, the complex drive systems, the cabins people ride in, and all the critical safety controls.
Okay, so that's the plan on paper. But who is actually out there on the ground making this happen? Let's take a look at a real-world example and zoom in on one of the companies leading this charge, M&M Ropeways. Now, to really get what they're doing, you have to understand their history. These guys are not newcomers. They've been in this business for 35 years. They are absolute veterans. And that deep experience, it shows in their results. They have over 114 successful projects under their belts, which has cemented their reputation as a super reliable name in the game. But if you want to know just how good their engineering is, get this. They've built the world's highest ropeways. We're talking installations at a staggering 18,000 feet for the Indian Army, operating in temperatures that plummet below -35 degrees Celsius. That is some next-level engineering. You know, their credentials really speak for themselves. It's not just about being ISO certified. They meet the toughest global safety standard in the world. They bring in top European design talent, and they handle everything from start to finish. It's this commitment to quality that has made them a trusted partner for both the private sector and the government. And they're not a one-trick pony either. Their expertise is incredibly diverse. Sure, they build passenger ropeways for cities and tourism, but they also engineer these heavy-duty industrial systems for things like mining and even super-precise cable cranes used to build massive hydropower dams.
This quote from the company really gets to the core of how they're able to do all this. It's not just about putting pieces together. It's about genuine, in-house innovation. They have their own labs and cutting-edge software to invent and manufacture their own top-quality solutions right there. So let's zoom back out. We've seen the government's grand plan and how a company like M&M is bringing it to life. What does all of this mean for the country in the long run? What's the view from the top?
Well, the national benefits are enormous. First off, this creates a whole wave of high-skilled jobs, and not just in the factories making the parts, but for the engineers installing them, the crews operating them, and the technicians who will maintain them for decades. That's how you fuel real economic growth.
And you know, the ambition doesn't stop at just making enough for India. By mastering this technology and making it cost-effective, India is setting itself up to become a major ropeway exporter to other countries in Southeast Asia and Africa that are facing a lot of the same challenges. And that, right there, is the most important takeaway. This was never just a story about building some cool new infrastructure. It's about building a deep, strategic, national capability in a really advanced engineering field, basically from the ground up.
Which leaves us with one last big question to think about. As this technology matures and this national expertise grows, it just opens up so many new doors. So beyond the mountains and the cities we've talked about, where will these highways in the sky take India next? Thanks for tuning in.